Everybody, welcome to the Gentle Art Podcast with Gene Dunn. Today, I have the privilege of sitting with Hanshi Dave Kovar. And Master Kovar is the martial artist. And he's someone that I've looked up to for 30 years now. And sir, I'm so honored to have you on the show. And I adore you, man. I watch all the things you do, and you're helping all of us in the martial arts community, whether that's on the school side or the teaching side, and for the students. And I'm so grateful to know you and have you on the show.
Oh man, it's my privilege and honor. You know, I have mutual respect, man. You know, I've always enjoyed my time with you. You know, you're like that. You know, I was talking to you the other day, we were talking about this. You're the perfect guy for your podcast because you're this hardcore martial artist, you know, like just, you know, knuckle breaker guy. And then on one side, you're the most like peaceful, loving guy on the planet. And somehow can I start with a story of you?
Yes, please.
So we're about 20 years ago, we're at a EFC convention somewhere, and we're sitting in the lobby. And we're having this deep conversation, man. And all of a sudden, some kind of mousy guy walks by, and he's got this really attractive, girlfriend or wife, right? And they walk by, and you notice a couple guys looking at this guy's girl, right? And all of a sudden, you go from like, yes, the world is beautiful and beloved, to I'm gonna kick those guys' butt. They shouldn't be looking at that. It was like a switch, man. And I was thinking, yeah, you know, Gene's a peaceful, loving guy, but you still don't want to cross too far.
I guess I have a little bit of an edge still. I'm working on dulling the razor's edge, sir. But you know, my ex-wife used to say that she was fiercely protective. And I share that sentiment. Like, I'm fiercely protective of the things that I love. And sometimes to a fault, maybe. But, you know, I think it's important. You know, karate teaches us about justice. And not that I get it all the time, but, you know, I think that's important, you know, for us as karateka or martial artists to be on the side of good. And
yes,
to stand up for what's right, you know, it's hard. It's hard. It may be easier for someone who's, 250 pounds, but you know, sir, in the martial arts, like in traditional martial arts, we kind of start with our teachers and our teachers' teachers. And, you know, tell us a little bit about your teacher. Where did he come from?
Yeah. So, you know, I'm going to be 61. I should put that into perspective because going back in time, in the mid 60s, I was 5 or 6 years old. And I remember we were living in Montana at the time, and there was, we were driving somewhere. I don't even remember where it was, but I remember seeing a silhouette of a guy doing a flying sidekick on a billboard. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. It's like martial arts. I didn't find martial arts. It found me. And at the time, you know, there was no kids doing martial arts, and plus everybody thought it was evil, bad for kids, there's no way that was going to happen. Right. And so finally my older brother, Tim, who you remember, so I started wrestling in 71 when I was in 7th grade. And I wrestled for 3 years, and I wanted to do karate, right, as well. And my older brother, Tim, went away to college, and he did a semester of taekwondo training, or a year of it, and came back and said, Dad, you got to let Dave do karate, man.
Oh,
and
nice.
So, that was in 73, and I started with a gentleman named Hanshi Bruce Jutnik, who I still have a relationship with. And then the cool thing about him was, at the time, and you remember the days where if you and I found out we were martial artists, the first thing you'd ask me is what style I was, and then you decide if you're going to be my friend or not based on what I answered you, right? Okay. Right. So you were a Shotokan guy, I was a Kempo guy, so that would mean that we couldn't be friends. Is that bizarre or what? Right? But that was kind of the way it was. But my instructor was pretty open-minded. Like, we actually had a Kodokan Jiu-Jitsu program. I got my little certificate, with my 75 hours of Jiu-Jitsu dated 1974. It's pretty cool, right? And we had a Filipino weaponry program we started in 75. So he was very open and receptive. So I kind of had to jump a little bit on my generation because you so much of what you think you get from your instructor, and my instructor was pretty open-minded. And so I've had the privilege of training with a lot of super high level guys. A couple. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Was he Taekwondo?
No, it was American Kempo.
American Kempo, and so he studied with.
He studied with a gentleman named Dad Babcock, who was under the Tracy brothers, who was under Ed Parker.
Yeah.
And what happened was in the late 70s, there's a gentleman you may or may not have heard is James Matosi. And James Matosi was well, I went and visited him in Folsom Prison probably a dozen times when I was like 19. So it's basically James Matosi was considered the father of Kempo, right? He was actually. He grew up. He was born in Hawaii, but his family moved back to Japan when he was about 5, and where he went to a temple where he learned his family art. Went back to Hawaii, and basically right during World War II, a little before that, he wanted to basically decided he was going to share his family art with the general public, and that was kind of the start of that's where William Chow came from, which was his senior student, well, so fast forward to the late 70s. We find out that Matosi's in Folsom Prison, which is right up the road from our school, and it's a long and involved story as to why he was there. I got to tell you, he was amazing. He was a cross between Mr. Miyagi and Yoda. He was the coolest guy, and so I actually have a black belt diploma from him. Now the reality is, I really didn't do anything to earn it. I was at the right place at the right time, but it's one of my most cherished possessions. And so my instructor Bruce Jutnik kind of was responsible for kind of the resurgence in what's called Kosho Ryu Kempo of that time frame.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, what do you think that you learned from your instructor? Like, what I kind of can think about, like, the key takeaway from my instructor. You know, like, what was it? What'd you get?
So, and I, like I said, if he was here, I would tell him I learned a lot of stuff what not to do from him as well, right? And you know, it was a different time.
Like my dad.
The stuff that went on in the schools back in the 70s, it was like, oh man, it was like, you know, I remember thinking, if I ever school, we're not going to have that happen, you know, that kind of thing. But I learned so much from him, and in his defense, he was only 10 years older than me, so that would have made him in his mid-20s. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of the rough and tumble, you know, blood and guts era.
Time.
Yeah, you can't really compare it. But one of the things I'll never forget, Hanshi Jutnik is this amazingly gifted martial artist. You know, he's not on most people's circuit, but a lot of people know him, and you know, he's highly respected. But he's never been in very good shape. He's not been a guy like you and I that, like, you know, bust out the push-ups and do our stuff, and you know. And I remember one time he was about 30. That would have made me about 20, and I'm tearing up the local tournament circuit. I'm kind of like the hot shot in the area, right? And he says, "Hey, Dave, let's get together and spar." I'm thinking, you know, you know, he's an old man, 30, right? You know, I'll take it easy on him. You know, I think I'd won the local grand championship, you know. And so we meet on a Sunday, and I'm in great shape. You know me. I'm in good shape now, but I've always kept myself fit, right? And at the time, and no exception, I'm training all the time, and I'm thinking, I'll take it easy on him. I freaking him dying, man. We spar for about 45 minutes. I can't even breathe, and he's not even breathing hard. And I'm thinking, how the heck did this happen? You know, first off, he kicked my butt you know, and clearly I was probably getting a little bit full of myself, and this was kind of you know, toning me down a little bit. But the interesting thing is that he knew how to relax. It's kind of like, you know, we all learn that, and this is what JiuJitsu teaches better than anything, right? Is it like, how do you learn how to train when you're tired? You got to be tired, right? And how sometimes we put one foot on the gas and one on the brake, and we're just kind of like here. And I really learned how to just kind of conserve my energy from him. That was one of the kind of the physical traits, I guess, that I picked that I can remember.
What a beautiful lesson. You know, it reminds me of the first time in 1995, February 95, I walked into my first jiu-jitsu class, and it was in Oishi's judo dojo in downtown Manhattan. And Craig Kukuk was teaching. Though most people don't know who that guy was.
Yeah.
But
first guy, first American black belt.
First American black belt, legit guy. And there I was, 6-time national karate champion. I beat the world champion the year before. I was 25 years old, hot shot, like one of the guys on the circuit. And my first lesson, I trained with a guy who probably was in his late 40s, who had 4 lessons or 5 lessons, maybe wrestled a little bit.
Right.
And the guy tore me apart. He submitted me with an arm lock in 30 seconds. I was like, wait, what? Like, how did that happen? And you know, there's one of those lessons, bro.
Yeah.
You never forget. There's a valuable martial art lesson there for us.
Yeah,
you know?
100%, man. It's like you say that it's like you know, it brings back so many. I remember, like, I started a couple months after you did, right? I started actually with Caesar in May of '94, but I remember training with you. You were a purple belt, I was a blue belt. And I don't know if people told you were a scary dude. You're still a scary guy, but there was no, you had only one. I remember just getting done with that and thinking, okay, I'm still alive. Whew, I'm still alive.
you know, so that, I mean, unfortunately, that was the culture then. That's what we were brought up to do. That was, you know, the method. It was ground your partner out. And I wish I had the notion, you know, now, like 2020 being hindsight, like, but we were encouraged to do that because Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was trying to put its stronghold in. Like, lots of people don't understand what our generation did and went through.
So I have a couple stories that I really can't share online. I can share offline about some of that, because I would have to name names, and I don't want to.
No.
Yeah, man, it was interesting. It was definitely the Wild West. You know, it was like interesting times, and I'm glad you have survived it.
We survived it, but it also gave a footing. Like, I think about sometimes myself, like, what is my legacy? What's the legacy that I leave behind? What did I contribute to push this thing that I love so much forward? And, you know, I think for you and I mean, you can correct me. I don't want to speak for you, but I can pretty much guess that, like, you know, we were part of a generation that gave the world jiu-jitsu in a way that didn't exist before, because before it came to America, it was effective. It was real. I'm not saying that, but it didn't have the exposure that it did now. And then, you know, in terms of like the grappling greats, like, we went through all of them. We went through all of them. So, you know, not to toot our own horn, but like, I think that's an important message for martial arts practitioners. Like, what are you doing to push the art forward? What's it gonna be because you were here, you participated in it? And I know you do that. You're the one who's inspired me to do that.
Well, thank you, sir. I remember one time we were in Syracuse, and this would have been about 96. I don't know that you were at this particular event, 95, 96. I was a blue belt. And this is when, you know, there was a couple people. I think Kenzo just opened up his school, right, not too long before that. And I remember it was at LaValle's place, and there was an EFC event, and there was all these guys. And I remember when I kind of realized the effectiveness of jiu-jitsu was because I was a blue belt. It was like nobody else had any training at this event. And then in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And I remember, like, one of them, Jeff Scarlata, as a matter of fact, he'll still remember the day. He was one of my guys. He's a scrappy, strong guy, right? Next thing you know, I had this line of guys that I'm grappling with. And I remember my joke to myself was I was East Coast grappling champ after that weekend. Because, you know, but I remember this one Aikido guy. And a lovely man. And he wanted to, you know, and this was the time where, you know, you just bring it, right? I mean, there's no going light. I mean, that was, and it wasn't being disrespectful. It's just how we train then, right? And I remember, like, oh man, this guy's a black, you know, like a 5th degree black belt in Aikido. Oh, I'm concerned. And no disrespect to that art. I'm not, because it's different. It has different application, different way. And we started Newaza, you know, and everything. But I remember thinking, wow, this stuff really works. You know, I was able to take, you know, and it was a real eye opener for me about, you know, the importance of, I guess, being well-rounded. And I remember a lot of people at the time feeling like they were almost too late to the game. Like, I haven't started by now, it's too late. And it's like, it's never too late. You know what I'm saying? It's never too late. And I look at some of these guys now from, like, I'm certainly your generation and a lot from my generation that never got on the bandwagon to kind of expand their horizons. And maybe they came from some traditional background. Maybe they came from a traditional Taekwondo background, and where they maybe are a great kicker, right? But they never really rounded themselves out, and now they've got a replace. They had their hip replaced, and they have a bad knee, and they're done. They're not able to do anything. But had they kind of adjusted to, to kind of adopt new things like jiu-jitsu or Filipino weaponry, they could still train into their, long term.
I think it's a lovely point. It's one of the reasons why I don't like to consider jiu-jitsu a sport, because I think its application is far-reaching. And I think that lots of people, had they understood the martial art application of jiu-jitsu, and historically, jiu-jitsu was the samurai art. It was the in-close fighting of the samurai. It is a martial art. And I think that had some of, the more, I'm a traditionalist. I've been practicing Shotokan karate since I'm 12 years old. I've been with my instructors for 30 and 40 years. And so had some of those people realized that, this was a martial art, this was an accompaniment to their own deep practice. It wasn't a kind of aggressor to their training, but more as a companion. They would have done very well. I think you're right.
Well, I think now, like I know when I had the privilege of training with you a couple of years ago when I was in the city and watching, I've been with your class many times, but seeing how you run your school and so many other guys now that really get it. Like they get the fact that, okay, it's not, let's throw that new white belt into the, to the wolves. Just
fresh
really,
meat.
Yeah. Ease people into the process, right? And it's really refreshing. And that's I think, how's the phrase go? There are old jiu-jitsu guys and there are hard training jiu-jitsu guys. I'm not saying quite right, but there's not any old hard training, meaning you can't do both, right? It's somewhere you've got to shift. Like for me, it's about, I'm really careful with who I train with, how long I train with, at what level, because I'm, if I have to go, I can go, but I want to be able to do this when I'm 80, you know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
I understand that I got to guard this machine right here. I got to take good care of it so that I can continue on the quest.
I think it's just really an important point. Like when we were first sort of developing this methodology, it was really revolutionary to a lot of people. Yeah. And there's not so many ways to skin the cat. Like if you're a lifetime martial arts practitioner, then you've got to come to this methodology. And if you're not, you don't got to say. Like if you're really like if you're not in this for 20, 30, 40 years, then, and you're only in it for 3 or 4 or 5, God bless you, take what you need, go. But don't criticize the people that are in it, trying, like, really expanding 100%. It.
Yeah. And that's what, like when someone says, hey, it's kind of like, same with fitness, at CrossFit, a lot of great stuff about CrossFit, 100%, right? I mean, I had an event, I trained for using it. It was very effective. I had the right coach, but I always ask people, how old is your trainer, right? And it's kind of like if you have a fitness trainer that's 23 years old or a jiu-jitsu instructor that's 23 years old, they might have a lot of knowledge, but they can't really identify with somebody that is in middle age. And you got to be, some can, but most can't, it's like, that's why I always say, I want to do jiu-jitsu. Well, make sure you find somebody that's been around a little bit and gets it, because you can't be around this sport, this art for, 20, 30 years and not, if you're still in it, you somewhere along the way, the light bulb went on and you go, okay, I got to train differently if I'm going to be doing this forever.
Right. Our good friend, our mutual friend, our dear friend, Brian Glick, has a great saying about this. He says, I would not take advice from someone that I wouldn't trade places with. And it is a genius mark, man. I just like,
That's
don't
good.
take advice from someone you wouldn't trade places with. It's not, it's just, it's bad. It's a bad practice.
Yeah, just a Brian Glick story. What an amazing guy he is, like super smart. But over the holidays, he came out and I got him to come to the school and do some training with some of my guys. And I invited a couple local black belts, guys that I know, and, a couple guys in my organization, and a couple really high level guys and it was just so fun to watch him, just with no effort, just kind of do his thing. It's beautiful, really amazing.
He's the black belt's black belt. Danaher called him the modern day Mifune. Like that's for those of you who don't know who Mifune is, he was Mr. Kano's top guy and was practicing high level judo well into his 80s. Like he was schooling people. So in this moment, I know you've got to be drawing from your practice. I know that you have, everybody's concerned. Everybody's got, we're all dealing with fear. We're all what's your practice of 50 years giving you now?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I got a lot to say about that, right? But we're all concerned, where you're at, you're right in the
ground zero.
Yeah,
we're ground zero again.
Yeah, you're ground zero again, and California has not been as hard as hit. We got our lockdown sooner, but I'll tell you what, this is our 50 week of lockdown from our schools, all the things, and so, yeah, it's concerning. And this is what, I'm a big fan of stoicism. I don't know if you follow Marcus Aurelius much but one of the things that it's about living a virtuous life, right? And and what does that mean? The four virtues are courage, justice, temperance, and it'll come to me. Anyway, I'll get back to it. Patience. That could be it. And the bottom line is that and everything. So the opposite of that, your life of virtue is, regardless of what happens around you, you're trying to keep your center, what it amounts to. And the best analogy that I can give is that, imagine that I'm an archer, and this is just like in Zen archery, right? I pull the arrow back and it's the perfect. I let go and it's absolutely the perfect pull. And once the arrow leaves, it's out of my control. Now let's imagine the wind knocks down the target. Should I be upset? Well, that's out of my control. A bird flies in front of it, and all I can be concerned about is how I draw and how I fire, right? Well, so what does that mean? To me, it's like most of the time what gets us out of this moment and out of sensing being happy or centered is regret for the past or fear of the future. And, and coulda, shoulda, woulda is a waste of time. Right. Yeah. And worrying about things where they're going to be in a year and a half is a waste of time. Now, not that you shouldn't prepare. Right. However, I try to, anytime that fear loop starts taking down, like what ifs start taking down, I take a second and I basically, because fear is contagious, but so is courage, so is being calm. Right. I do my best to refocus. And I actually wrote myself a statement. Let's see if I can find it. I think you'll like it, so that I could focus my mind on this. And it goes like this: how can I manage this crisis in a way that brings maximum benefit to my family, my business, and my community? Right? And so why that's important, why that helps for me right now is that otherwise what happens, you start asking all these limiting questions and
yes.
Yes. And I always try to position challenges in the form of a question that assumes there's an answer. Right? And so instead of why this have to happen or what's going to happen if things go, it's okay, how can I, maximum benefit from this situation? And how can I make the best use of this for my community, for my business, and for my family? And what that does is that gets me thinking solution oriented. So if there is a solution, I'm more likely to find it when I'm thinking that way. And by the way, I'm good for 23 hours and 45 minutes a day. I'm good, man. There's 15 minutes, sometimes about midnight, where I'll wake up kind of worried about that I have to kind of go through this process. And then I also, I'm a fan of when you're in those high moments, when you're feeling good about things, of writing a note to yourself, because who can give you better advice than you when you're at your best, right? Like I could tell you, but I don't know what buttons work for you. I know what buttons work for me. So I wrote myself something years ago when we were going through some financial challenges, and I'll share it. And because I say it every day, I am strong, calm, and committed. I will not move back in fear. Instead, I will move forward with confidence, born of good thinking and hard work. I will not let occasional doubts change my focus. Be it work or play, I will strive to be in the pleasant moment. Every day I'll do my best and leave the rest to God and retire to my home worry-free. Life is good. I will get through this. So that's an affirmation that kind of brings me back in and gets me centered. And then, and the key is to not let yourself go too far. It's kind of like, control the beast when it's little. You know, if you let yourself, your mind go down some rat hole and you're all worked up, that's hard to draw you back. But if you can catch it early on, it's an easier adjustment.
Sounds like a sparring match to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you know, you're in the ring and you've got to be centered the whole time.
Yes, sir.
And if you let it go, you're going to lose the fight.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I was reading something right now as we're all working hard to provide service for our students. And what I'm doing right now is I'm telling a story to all my junior students like every day, right? And it was easy for the first 15 because I have all these stories just like you do. Now I'm like, oh, you know, what's the next story? So I'm going online and I'm looking. And I read the story yesterday I thought was great. And it goes like this. It's very fitting for this time. There's this wise man that everybody goes to for their problems. And every day all the villagers go to this wise man to tell them the same problems. And finally, the wise man's kind of had enough. So he tells them a joke and they all laugh. It's a super funny joke. And they feel better and they leave. The next day they come back and the wise man tells them the same joke again. And then a couple people laugh and then they leave. And the next day the guys come back to complain and the wise man tells them the same joke and they go, what the heck? You told me that it's not funny anymore. It's, yes, you can't expect to laugh at the same joke. So why should you expect to complain about the same things is what kind of the moral was. And it was like, oh, it's a good story. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking about asking you what your favorite martial arts story is. And, you know, I was thinking about it from my perspective, and there's so many good ones, but I like, you know, Musashi, the most famous samurai, he never lost a battle. He never lost a duel. And Musashi, when he was like 14 or 13, defeated the most famous samurai in Japan at that time. And what he did was he hid in a tree and jumped out and defeated his opponent with a wooden bokken and created this legend. And, you know, not for the brutality. That's not why it's my favorite story.
Right.
But for the indication, like this points to an out of the box thinker under the most extreme circumstances, when it's like a David and Goliath story. It's like there's a way to outsmart the fear and think out of the box, moment by moment by moment, that can bring about victory. And I just love that story because he's young, he's vulnerable, and what really does he have? He doesn't even have a sword. He's got a wooden stick, and he's able to position himself mentally to overcome these insurmountable odds. And, you know, for me, that's the quintessential martial arts story in that way. It's like everybody, we're the underdog, we're the David, you know, and this is the Goliath. And, you know, we got a couple of, you know, farming tools, maybe.
Right.
And we got to sit and we've got to be still and we've got to think about how to defeat this thing.
Yeah, great observation. You know, it's like if you wisdom comes from experience remembered, right? And you gotta. I love you, man.
I love you. I adore you.
but you know, you gotta, like, if we don't take what we learn on the mat in hard training you know, I mean, first off, you and I both love to train. I mean, we like doing it just because it's fun, right? Some people like, I got a little side story. A year or two back, my wife got me some golf clubs for my birthday. We live right by a golf course, right? And I'm all, you know, I'm happy to go. So we take a private lesson from this guy, and it was good. But here's the whole time, this is what I'm thinking. I hope nobody sees me. I'm cheating on martial arts.
You know,
because I'm thinking, how much better could I get at an arm bar? You know, if I'm right.
I know. Like every time someone has invited me to go do golf, I'm like, no, I got to go practice martial arts. Yeah. You know, like, you know, but then Mr. Vizio, who's my Kung Fu teacher, you know, he's a golf shark. It's like some guys like your teacher, like right. they just do it all effortlessly. Not me, but go ahead. So I'm sorry.
No, that was it. You know, the guy, I'm sure you've read Hakakure by Tsunetomo.
Yeah.
And what I love about kind of the wisdom that I got now, what that book did for me. So I love Book of Five Rings, of course, right? And I read it every 3 or 4 years. And Hagakure, some of it is politically incorrect because it was written at a different time, but there's some gems there. And that really got me thinking about things. But one of them was, you know, there's a part there, and I'm paraphrasing, how a samurai never runs from the rain. If it rains, he doesn't go out faster. He just goes about his business because he knows he's going to get wet anyway, so he's not going to worry about it. And I love that concept, right? And you can just see that guy walking proud where everybody scurries around from building to building. And then Mythbusters did a special on this, and they found out you actually get wetter if you run. So that was interesting. Yeah. So the samurai had it, but it got me thinking about, and there was a part about, you know, always got to be prepared for battle, what I could do when it comes to applying my martial arts. How can I get better in my everyday living? And I came up with 6 words. Can I share them with you?
Yes.
So yeah, the first word is posture, right? So posture is very martial. We know our mom always said sit with a good posture, or stand with good posture.
Yes.
But you know, when you project confidence, you know that, right? But from a physical standpoint, when your posture is good, what happens is you're using less energy because you're working with gravity, right?
Eating good, all of it.
Yeah. And so you're gonna get as tired, you know, you're gonna less likely to hurt your knee or your back or your hip. Notice I brought my shoulders back, so did you, as soon as we started talking about that, right? The second word is breathing. And of course, I'm talking about diaphragmatic or abdominal breathing, not thoracic breathing, right? Preferably through the nose, because that engages the lower lobes of the lungs, which focus us and calm us, etc. And of course, that's number 2. That's something we can practice all the time. The third one is stride. Stride as in the length of step you take. Now, I think, you know, I train with a gentleman named Shion Nishiuchi. He's my Iaido and Kabuto teacher. I've been training with him for 30 years. Twice a month he comes to my school. He's amazing. He's like a real samurai. The guy's, if you saw him in street clothes, you would know he's a martial artist, right? Then you get closer, you see his knuckles, that confirms it, right? He's this little dude. He's about 5'4", 120 pounds, total badass. He just puts me in my place all the time, right? You know, he's always kind of, you know, cracking the whip, but you know, he's talking about, you know, I did a little research after this, but the length of your stride is in direct relationship to your level of health. So when you think about that old person who's walking really slow, so the whole idea is, if you get in the habit of having a longer stride, a couple things happen. Number 1 is that your posture improves. You can't have a good stride and bad posture. And when your posture is good and your shoulders are back, you naturally breathe better. And then you're also going to get to wherever you're going a little faster. But the other thing is, a good stride projects confidence. So those are the first 3. The next one is balance. I'm talking like literally physical balance, right?
Yes.
That's one of those things that as we age deteriorate. So stand in line at the grocery store, pick your foot a couple inches off the floor, right? You know, but also there's a great quote: concentrate on your balance, lose your upset. Concentrate on your upset, lose your balance. And what that basically means is that emotional upset and physical balance are like oil and water. They don't mix. And when I'm emotional, when I'm upset, my balance sucks. So I have an option. If I have the wherewithal in that moment, so I'm not like freaking out, I'm just starting to get upset, to go, wait a minute, I'm starting to get upset. Pick your foot up off the ground. One of 2 things is going to happen. Number 1 is balance is going to be terrible. Or number 2, you're going to find that emotion dissipating and calm yourself down. Incredible. And the 5th one is intent. And that is that, like right now, this is the only time on March 16th I'm going to be on the Gentle Art podcast. I owe it to you, just like Japanese tea ceremony, ichigo ichi-e, right? Roughly translated means one chance, one encounter. I owe it to you to give you my best time. But if I meet somebody in a back alley that wants to hurt my family, my intent will match that situation, right? So it's always being mindful of the intent that you bring to the situation. And then the final one, actually, I got these mixed up. This would have been the final one. The other one was agility or suppleness, and that is always trying to move in an elegant fashion. Whether you're going up the stairs, whether you're getting groceries out of the back of your car, are you clunking around, or are you just trying to be cat-like and elegant? And those are things that we can do anytime, right? So now all of a sudden I don't have to just train for not half hour, an hour, or 2 hours a day, man. I can be training all the time, and I believe that carries. It all carries. If I do that, I'm going to step on the floor. I'm going to be more efficient. And if I take the lessons I learn on the floor and I apply them outside, it's a win-win.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful, man. That was genius. Really, really genius. There's two areas that I want to kind of poke into. And one is like, I think you're the teacher's teacher as well. Like, when I first started teaching, I used to buy your videos. I used to buy yours and your brother's VHS videos. And for years and years and years, I learned how to teach martial arts from you. And I'll never forget you in that way. Like I think you literally gave people a life in the martial arts. And that's part of your legacy, and people should know that. And like, if you're a martial art teacher right now, and you're worried about what you're gonna do, or like I wonder to myself if some people are going like, I'm never gonna teach martial arts again. Like, what would you say to them? How, like, as the teacher's teacher?
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. The kind words.
All true.
I don't take them lightly. No, sir. Thank you. You've heard this story, but I think it's very apropos for this time. The story goes like this. And cut me off if you don't want me to go through the whole thing. It's not that long.
No, but man, go.
An old man, young boy, live out. They got this couple acres in their hard living, life, right? And the old man can't do a lot, so he's relying on this young coming of age boy, 15, 16 years old, and they've got this one old plow horse. And this plow horse is there, without the plow horse, who knows what's going to happen? What do you know? A big storm comes, knocks down the fence, and the plow horse runs off. And everybody in the village goes, oh, that's bad luck. And the old man says, well, maybe so, maybe not. And about 3 days later, what do you know? The plow horse comes back, but it brings 3 young stallions with it.
Of course it does.
And what do you know? They managed to get the corral up, and now they're almost considered wealthy by local standards. And everybody in the village goes, oh, good luck. And the old man says, maybe so, maybe not. And so now this young guy, man, he wants to, he's going to break these stallions so that they can sell them for, and make a lot of money and get their farm back to where they need. And so on the process of trying to break one of the stallions, he gets thrown off and he breaks his leg. And everybody in the village, now he can't work the farm. And everybody in the village is going, oh, bad luck. And of course the old man says, maybe so, maybe not. A couple days later, the boy's in bed, with a brace on his leg and recovering. And what do you know? The local warlord comes in looking for young, able-bodied men to go to war. And it has to pass on this young boy because he's got a broken leg. And the warlord rides off, and everybody in the village says, oh, good luck. And the old man says, maybe so, maybe not. Well, the deal is we never know. Things are always unfolding.
That's right.
I don't know what our industry is going to look like in 6 months. If you're a martial arts instructor, right? It might look different. I think the 3 things right now for me, it's adaptability, attitude, and action, right? It's like, we just got to adjust, man. And we can't worry about where we're going to be in a year and a half from now. We got to do what we can do today.
Moment by moment.
Yeah, let's imagine you and I want to get to the North Pole and we don't have a map, or we lost our map. We can sit down and whine about not having a map, or we can go, okay, the sun sets in the west. It's afternoon. That means the sun's on my left shoulder. Let me start walking that direction. That's north. And at least it gets me closer, right? And so right now, that's kind of the key, is to go north, right? Take massive action in doing things that are going to benefit you, that are things that are going to benefit you or your community. And then don't worry about the rest. As little as you can, right? As little as you can. Honestly, our business is going to probably look different, especially jiu-jitsu. Now, our primary core program is striking. We have a jiu-jitsu in several of our locations, but it's not our main stay. And I see the difference in how much harder that's going to be. Honestly, I don't mean to scare people, but striking skills, it's like it's going to be a little easier to keep distance, right? But yeah, most of us have a model of putting 30 people on the mat. And that's going to be a while before people are going to be comfortable with that. So we're just going to have to be creative. And that's why it's about positioning this in the form of a question that assumes there's an answer. You got to make sure that you write down your thoughts in a positive way so you can kind of start working on it. And I don't have an answer, but I know that guess what? You and I, a year from now, our refrigerator is still going to have food in it. We're not going to be homeless. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was beautiful. May I ask another one in that same vein? Yeah, if you're a martial arts student and you're going like, I don't know if I'm going to practice anymore, or I don't know, like, what would you say, like, you're the student as well. Like, you're the consummate guy. Like, you're always learning. You have teachers. You understand the dynamic. What would you say to a student?
Yeah, well, of course, you and I have such a different perspective because we just can't imagine why anybody wouldn't do this. You're like, it's like, right?
Everybody on the planet Earth should be doing martial arts.
It has the answer to everything. I would tell that student, you'd be crazy not to. However far you've gotten in your martial arts training, if you've benefited from it, that's just an indication of what the future is, right? And that it only gets better, man. It's like so. I would take precautions.
Adversity reveals ourselves to us.
Exactly. We tell people all the time, you'll get through this, suck it up. This is our chance. This is our chance to present ourselves to the world and to our family in the most positive light possible. And, there is no courage without fear.
Beautiful.
If someone that's not afraid of anything, it doesn't take courage, man. So true courage isn't fearlessness, it's overcoming fear. So it's dealing with that fear, taking a breath, trying to control it, and then going head on, right? And as a martial arts student, that means getting back to class as soon as you can, man.
Yeah, like part of the issue here is that this thing is unfolding in such a way that it wants us to stop the things we love doing. It metaphysically, in consciousness is trying to impede those things. And I think as martial artists, we need to push back. As a student of the martial arts, this is the practice, everybody. It is the practice. It's to prove that nothing can stand in your way. I mean, that is the cornerstone of the martial arts, an indomitable spirit. And so you're going to have to make a couple of adjustments. That's true. We all are going to have to do that. But if you let it rob you of something you love, well, I mean, that's a bigger tragedy than.
So I think the phrase goes, a coward dies 1,000 deaths, a hero dies but one. And worrying about all that, what you're doing is it's kind of like Mark Twain said something. He said, I've had a lot of problems in my life, and I've been through a lot of troubles, and some of them actually happened. Right? A lot of it is just in his head. Yeah, and so that's kind of like, what makes somebody feel better is three things. Let's just say that I go to you and you're a psychologist and or a psychiatrist, and I go to you because I'm mildly depressed and maybe there's no medication available. That's another issue. We won't even talk about that right now. But let's just say, and what are you going to tell me? You're going to tell me to do one of three things, probably all three: exercise, service, and gratitude. Right? And so what's better exercise than martial arts? You know what I'm talking about? It's like I would tell that student, have you ever not wanted to come to class and you went anyway? And, of course, I'm sure you've faced that battle. You're driving, you're going, I don't feel like training today. And you come up with all these excuses, right? But you suck it up because that's who you are.
Go anyway.
Yeah. And how do you feel when you're done?
Great.
You're always glad you did. You're always glad you did. So that's kind of the focus point. You're like, think about how good you feel at the end of a workout and hold on to that, because that's going to get you back on the mat. That's going to sustain your training.
I want to wrap up with like one, by the way, well put, sir. And really, I think really responsible. Thank you. What's one great story, like one great teaching moment that you've had? I know there's so many, right? Like,
yeah, right. No, there's the ones where I look good and the ones that I don't look as good, right? There's, of course, the war stories that are fun to tell, but I'll share one. It's just I don't even know if it's like it's kind of a, so I'm, 21 years old, 2021, and I'm competing a lot. And in Northern California, back in the late 70s and early 80s, I did pretty good, right? And I remember one Saturday, it was one of those things where I ended up winning it was the Capital City Karate Championship. I fought a bunch of high-level guys that somehow I shouldn't have beat, but I beat. I ended up winning grand champion. I was just a kid, and that was on a Saturday. And there's another tournament on Sunday. And it's in the Sacramento one. Sacramento was on Saturday. Sunday, San Francisco, and it's the Bay City Pro-Am. It's this big tournament, and there's all the guys there. And I show up, and I'm so cocky, man. I just had this victory the day before, right? And I remember this one guy, rubbing my shoulders, and everybody's talking. They're pointing at and I'm feeling pretty proud of myself. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, everybody's talking, and a bunch of guys were there, and they're talking about this young kid that's just going to tear up the circuit, and they're talking about me, and I'm just kind of taking it all in, and I'm measuring my division, and I'm seeing all these guys that are going to be pretty good, and I say, okay, I'm going to have to fight that guy in the third round, and I'm going to have to fight, and I go against some nobody, right? Some guy I'd never seen before, and I lose 3-zip in like 30 seconds.
He tools you.
And then so I had to go back to my school on Monday, not after this big victory, but very humbled. So that was one that reminded me, man, you can never get ahead of yourself. It's about being in the moment, right? Whatever it is, whether it be in a tournament or teaching class, it's like wherever you are, boom, be there. And when you don't do that is when you get into trouble. And otherwise, I'm a strong believer if you're centered in spontaneous right action. If you're mentally, physically, and emotionally kind of centered, you're going to say and do the appropriate things at the appropriate time because you're connected. You're kind of there, right? But once you let your ego kind of boom, then that's when stupid stuff happens. So that was a lesson that I probably learned that many times, but that's the one that jumped out.
Well, I love you, man, and I'm so grateful to be in. I want to say in your presence, but I don't want to embarrass you.
No,
like I'm so grateful that you've called me a friend. Is really what I want to say, and I continue to look up to you, and I've done so for most of my martial arts life, and I really appreciate what you're doing for us as teachers, us as business owners, and us as students, and thank you for showing us what North looks like, where we should be heading, and you're just amazing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It was a real honor to be on your show. All right, and best to you, man.
Love you.
Love you too, man. Take care. All right.